Okay, so what is media ecology? I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking more about media ecology to clarify any misconception and also hopefully add to the discussion that's already going on there. I would recommend that people go look at the media ecology website. It can be found at, if you go look at the Media Ecology Association, you should be able to get some information there about media ecology as well as further reading for people. I think if I had to explain to somebody just really quickly, right, in an informal way, what is media ecology? Well, media ecology is the study of, communication mediums as environments. When you look at a communication medium, if you just look at something, like say I take this pen, if I just take the pen looks like it's just an object or a technology that's in an environment. The same could be said of a bicycle. If I look at a bicycle, the bike looks like it's just a thing there in the environment. The same could be said of the printing press. I go into a room and I look and there it is, the printing press. It looks like it's just a thing there in an environment. I think what the media ecological perspective would say is that you need to study those mediums as environments themselves. That is, the user is the content of the medium. Right? Rather than trying to get at what is the message that is sent by the medium, you try to understand the larger social, even the side effects of a given medium in terms of what kind of scale and scope and change and pace does it bring into the culture, right? Neil Postman, who was one of the people who coined the terms media ecology, he suggests that it goes all the way back to high school biology class. He was in biology class and he found a little petri dish, and in that petri dish they squirted an aqueous solution, and that aqueous solution they called a medium, and then a culture grew out of that medium. And so the notion that mediums grow cultures is part of this notion of media ecology. Now, it does have a kind of organicism. There are certainly resonances between natural ecology and media ecology. This, I think, for me anyway, is most well captured by a line by Marshall McLuhan where he says, man is an extension of nature that remakes the nature that makes the man. Right? So there's some sort of dialectic whereby humans are that process in nature which subjects itself to technological extension and mediation. Now, three of the significant, or what do you want to call them, landmark or decisive technologies that have been studied extensively in media ecology are the phonetic alphabet, or phonetic writing, in the West, right, in the West. So there's phonetic alphabet, there's the printing press, and the telegraph. Each one of these technologies introduced large-scale social change into the entire world. It isn't the question of were messages somehow more effectively transmitted by the printing press or the telegraph, or did the written word make it more easy to send the word? Was it more effective in conveying what was originally written? It's a larger question of how is the user mediated by those environments. So for example, in the question of the alphabet, people would be interested in the way that there's an entire noetic shift that goes on when a person becomes literate, that their sensibilities toward language change, that much of the rhythm and rhyme that's used for memory in the oral word gets displaced, and instead a new tolerance for novelty enters in as fears of forgetfulness fade. The alphabet radically transformed how people were able to understand their own language. Now, one of the ways that people have addressed the unique contribution of the alphabet is to suggest that it dissociated the syllable. Right? The syllable is the smallest empirical unit of sound. So for example, you take our letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E. All the B, C, D, E letters, even as you pronounce the letters, it has the E vowel. And so what the alphabet did was somehow severed vowel from consonant. Yeah, it's somehow, prior to the phonetic alphabetic writing, there were forms of phonetic text that were called syllabic script. But syllabic script, again, this is the first time when you had symbols meaning sounds rather than symbols representing images. The transformation that went on in consciousness as people tried to visually represent what could be heard and learn to see what was being heard. This was a radical transformation in consciousness, and in particular, right, Eric Havelock addresses this very well as the discovery of the pure vowel or the pure consonant. Again, if you go back to this example of the B, C, D, E from our language, you have the you can't really hear the consonant in its pure form, but the Greeks, I guess in some way they discovered it. I think it's useful to know that the ancient Greece was a seaport, and so there were many different cultures there and many foreign languages coming into contact with one another that created a sort of an awareness of language. Take the printing press. The printing press was very significant in changing people's sensibilities about nation, changing people's sensibilities about religion, about distribution of knowledge. It really made scientific aspirations possible, right? Literacy writ large, not just the ability to write on scrolls or on manuscripts, but the actual ability to have the exact same copy. Right, there's a wonderful story that Margaret Mead tells about how she was with some people. I'm not sure if she was where she was, Trobriand or something like this, and up washed a case of books. And not only had many of the natives there never seen a book before, but it was so odd to them when they got the box of books because all of the books were absolutely identical. And that is the principle of the printing press. Standardization, identical seriality. Think of cornflakes coming off a conveyor belt. Try to look at the way street signs have organized everything as north, south, east, west. Try to go down the aisles of the grocery store and look at the way the information is cataloged, organized, and standardized. That standard uniformity, the way that when you go get a Dorito, that Dorito is the same as the other Dorito. That's the alphabetic principle. It's the principle of reiteration and uniform repeatability. It's very different than the kinds of writing that you see, for example, in manuscript culture. The last thing I would just talk about is the telegraph. The telegraph somehow was the first time that information could travel faster than any messenger. And what it did was it radically dislocated space and time. It established the futures market and the stock market. It created the time zones. It revamped and refigured much religious sentiment. Yeah, in fact, the first message that was sent across the telegraph was, "What hath God wrought?" Many people were very fearful. There was a resurgence of religiosity. Many people feared it was the devil's work. There is something very odd about the dislocation of space and time that occurred within the telegraph. I think its fullest culmination is happening right now. It's in Web 2.0. It's all these digital technologies. And if you are a young person, or if you're a person in general who's interested in Skype and YouTube and Facebook and Blogger and MySpace and what all of these are doing to our culture. Not the question of what messages are being sent and are they more effective in a PowerPoint as opposed to a video, as opposed to a written text. Those are interesting and they do have media ecological bearing, but the ultimate questions are, how are they impacting us? How are they affecting our religious sensibilities, our socio-political sensibilities, our sense of inwardness, our sense of responsibility to the larger world, our sense of the cosmos? Media ecology is really concerned with how are we affecting ourselves by the dominant mediums that we use. Okay, hope that makes sense.